Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Exona Moll. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Music in Darkness, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And guys, listen, if you want to gather more information on Exona, Music in Darkness is her fictional narrative that we're going to be discussing today. But make sure you're doing yourself a favor and you check back into her Amazon and her Barnes & Noble page so you can grab her autobiography called A Square Hole for a Square Peg. This way you can gather much more information on Exona. And I will say that she was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact our great friends over at UR Link. And you can find out more information on them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Exona here on the line. The moment you go to her Amazon page, her Barnes & Noble page, you start to do any research on her book, Music in Darkness, you instantly understand what we're going to be embarking upon. Now listen, I'm not going to go into much detail. I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm going to leave that for Exona herself. But this is a fictional narrative, okay? So it's created for entertainment's sake. And it's a romance novel, okay? It's a love story between two very unusual people. I absolutely love that. And really, the big thing that I'm looking for is just to have a wonderful journey to be able to embark upon. Guys, let's call a spade a spade. I don't know about you, but I have been yearning for something to really take me out of the day-to-day monotony that has become this COVID living situation. And this fantastic narrative is the perfect exit strategy. So sit back, strap in, and let's get ready for a wonderful ride. Exona, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Well, very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this, okay? We're very much looking forward to the words that we're going to be able to receive from you. Now, Exona, I know we have so much information to cover. And usually I'd like to start off with going into more information on you, but you have written an autobiography, A Square Hole for a Square Peg. So our listening audience can go there, they can purchase that narrative, and they can gather all of the information that they need to know on you. So today is all about Music in Darkness. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
It was inspired originally by the story of Phantom of the Opera. And having watched that quite a number of times, it inspired me to write a story of my own. The main character is a gentleman who has similar problems, having been rejected by the world and living a very isolated life. And a young lady called Lucy discovers him. And the story is basically the life they formed together and the adventures that they lived over the years.
You know, Exona, I'm really curious. The next place, let's switch it up a little bit. I was going to go someplace else first, but actually, let's talk about inspiration. So when you started off by talking about really the love for this, or this narrative really it was birthed out of your love for the famous play, the famous musical, The Phantom of the Opera. Now, of course, that has been a theatrical piece that has been done over and over throughout our history and also on the silver screen. So there's been movies and television shows and things built and constructed around that. So I'm curious, Exona, first and foremost, let's talk about inspiration. Are you a thespian? Are you a theater goer? Where does that love for the Phantom of the Opera come from? And then how did that translate into you becoming a writer?
I enjoy musicals, rather than straight theatre. And also, though I have, as I said, I have watched Phantom of the Opera on screen quite a number of times, I'm also fascinated by the original book, which was written by a French gentleman. So as for it inspiring me to write a story, when I was a child, I used to like telling stories. I used to find reading hard work in those days. So instead of reading, I told stories to myself. As an adult, I was very pleased that watching the Phantom of the Opera inspired me to actually write a story. So I was able to call back on what I had done as a child and make some use of it in creating a story that I hope my readers will enjoy.
Next question. I'm really curious about the title, Music in Darkness. Now, Exona, there's something about it that really is so intriguing and instantly grabs your attention. Now, talk to our listening audience. Really, where did that title come from? Why did you choose that to be the representation for your book, and what connection does that title have to the storyline itself?
How honest ought I be? When I was working with the publisher, I was offered a list of various different suggestions of a title, and that one was the one I picked that seemed to represent the story best. Originally, its working title was Lucy's Story, because the young lady was Lucy, and I felt at the time that my characters tell the story for me, and I write down what they say, hence why it was Lucy's Story. But I agreed that that was possibly not the best final title, and Music in Darkness appealed to me as being a good representation of my story, and also working with a friend of mine, we came to the conclusion that that was the nicest of the titles.
Again, here on the line with Exona Moll, we're discussing her fantastic book, Music in Darkness, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. You know, Exona, really, next question that I'd love to go into and I'd love to ask, and really a curiosity for myself, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting before you embarked upon this journey?
Where it led. It started off as I was expecting, and then it took off in directions that I hadn't anticipated when I first started. I don't want to say too much about where it goes, or it'll spoil the story.
Smart woman. There you go. Don't give too much away. You guys know what you have to do. Amazon, Barnes and Noble are the only places you have to go to gather all of the information. Now, Exona, as we start to tie out of this fantastic interview, I'm curious, what is next? What's on the horizon for you? Because, of course, we have this book. We have your autobiography, A Square Hole for a Square Peg. What is next? Is there a sequel to this narrative or another book entirely that you're working on at the moment?
There isn't a sequel to Music in Darkness, but there are other books in the pipeline. Well, they're a lot more historic, shall I say, or a lot further back in time anyway, than my story or Lucy's story. But because the final draft isn't complete yet, I'm reluctant to say too much about what the story will be about.
And last question here. Listen, being an artist myself, I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward, in a sense, to other artists out there listening in. Now, in this instance, other writers out there listening in. Now, you just said, right, 2 books have been completed and published, and there are more on the horizon, still in creation, so we're not quite there yet, but at the very least, there is more to this journey of you being a writer left in store. Now, I'd love to take this opportunity to really pick your brain and any words of wisdom you can offer a new writer, someone out there listening in that is just starting out. Exona, what words of wisdom would you be able to relay?
Just let your imagination run on its own, see where it goes, and write it down as it comes to you.
There you have it. There you have it. Like everything else in this interview, short, concise, and right to the point, but so powerful. Absolutely love those words of wisdom there, Exona. Guys, you know what you have to do. You know what is so great about this is, listen, we are at the end of the interview now, and we've discussed so much information, yet we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discovered. Who doesn't love a wonderful romance novel, right? I know I do. I'm sure many of you out there can relate as well. So make sure you're doing yourself a favor. Head on over to Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. Pick up your copy of Music in Darkness by Exona Moll. And while you're at it, make sure to pick up her autobiography, A Square Hole for a Square Peg. And in addition to all of that, check in frequently to her Amazon and Barnes & Noble pages for the future books the moment they become available. You surely will not be disappointed. As I stated when we first started this interview, guys, the big thing for me and why I'm looking forward to this is there's been a lot of adversity. There's been a lot of obstacles that we've all faced. And, of course, the severity of those obstacles range with the individual. But one thing is certain, across the board amongst our entire human family, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. And we can start to see a faint light in the distance, but we're not quite there yet. We're not quite at the end of the tunnel just yet. So in the interim, while we're waiting to get there and we're just still chipping away, why not have a fantastic narrative to get lost in along the way? And this book is the perfect one for you to pick up. So make sure you're heading on over there and you're picking up a copy as soon as you can. Exona, this has been an absolute pleasure. What an honor. Thank you very much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much.